Hey gang, Kevin here, Life22, and today we have our famous return guest, Kenny Polcari from Slatestone Wealth. Am I getting this right now, Kenny? I always screw
You
it up.
are chief market strategist, Slatestone Wealth. You are.
All right, all right. And well, you came on the first time you came on the show was last year, around this time. It
Yeah,
was
I was gonna say it was about a year ago.
yeah, it was my birthday last year that you came on. It was I don't think
When
you
is your birthday? Happy birthday!
it's tomorrow. It's tomorrow. That's why.
Happy birthday! Mine was 2 weeks ago.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's why we were trying. Yeah, I was trying to schedule for tomorrow, but you're traveling, so I don't want to.
Yeah. I gotta go to New York.
Oh, see, you're coming up to visit.
There you go. Yeah,
Wrong,
go to the
wrong.
city.
Yeah. Well, good luck to you. Um,
But let's not even go there.
no,
It's a disaster in New York City. But you know what? They voted for it, so and they're going to have to at least live 4 years with it, unless the new governor somehow, if there is a new governor, somehow throws them out.
right, right. Throws them out, or at least has the National Guard hanging out there to make sure things stay in control.
Yeah, yeah.
But so I guess with you going to New York City, what's the market look like now? What is Wall Street for the average Joe who thinks about it from the Wolf of Wall Street perspective that, got trader on the floor.
Well, so I'll tell you, Wall Street in general, like the area, is all condominium, so it's all residential now. So the banks and brokers are all gone. All that stuff is gone. It looks like a regular neighborhood anywhere in New York City, right? There's kids riding bikes and mothers pushing strollers and people walking their dogs, and that never existed, right? Wall Street was the New York Stock Exchange, it was the banks, it was the brokers, it was everyone in suits and ties, and then the place emptied out at night. Now it's 24 hours a day. There's people there. They live there. They do everything there, right? So that's what the area looks like.
And it's
Wall
just a
Street, the building, the New York Stock Exchange, still exists as it does, but it's gone through a number of transformations. And today, if you see it on TV, you see it on CNBC or whatever, you'll see that the 5,500 people that were there are no longer. There might be 100 people there in total today doing the job that 5,500 people did, because it's all done electronically. And even the electronics don't happen there, right? The servers and the data centers are in Mahwah, New Jersey, and they're in Ohio, they're in Maine, they're in Florida, they're all over the country. So the trades don't like even happen there anymore, right? But
is that and
uh,
that's part of the servers being split up like that is that's for redundancy, right? So
That's
somebody
for redundant. Well, it's for 100% for redundancy, 100% after 9/11. Because remember, there wasn't that redundancy prior to 9/11, and after 9/11, while the exchange itself never got quote unquote damaged, what did get damaged was the cables and the T1 lines and the fiber optic cables that ran from the exchange, connecting all those computers to the outside world, ran through a conduit that went through the belly of the trade center and out the Hudson River, and then out to the rest of the country and the world. And so when the trade centers collapsed, all those conduits got crushed, and the wires and the cables and everything got crushed. And so therefore, the New York Stock Exchange was essentially neutered. You could turn on the lights and go there, but if you remember at the time, there was no trading. The place closed down for 6 days, which was, at the time, 2001 was, a crisis on a number of levels. It was a crisis because of not only the event, but then how U.S. capital markets came to a complete standstill for 6 days, which is something that had never happened. And it created all kinds of financial panic, not only in this country, but really around the world. And so now, yes, that redundancy exists. So the New York Stock Exchange has got, data centers in Mahwah where most of it happens, but there's backup data centers in other parts of the country, as well as all the data centers that run all the alternative venues and the NASDAQ and the other exchanges that exist. They're located all around the country too. They're not just in one spot, because if they were, and some terrorists decide to blow up that one spot, they'd bring the country to its knees again. Today, if they blow up the New York Stock Exchange, would be a tragedy 100%, but we wouldn't have the same
we could still
financial
mobilize.
circumstances we had then, because the other data centers that are located in Maine and California and Ohio and Florida and wherever would continue to operate. Now it might get ugly. Nothing says it wouldn't get ugly, but the markets would no longer be affected. Now, if they started blowing up the country, then who really cares about what the markets are doing? Because we've got a whole other problem, right?
Sure, sure.
So
But they would
so
have to have a more coordinated attack. So that would a
correct.
lot of times as an HVAC guy, right? So my perspective is if I have a pump go down, I need a redundant pump to be there ready to go, or at least a pump that I can quickly exchange. And so like just for in case of emergency. So sometimes people have a lot of these things in place. That redundancy exists on the off chance that something happens, something catastrophic, something that you're not anticipating. And sometimes it's as simple as something that you are anticipating. Hey, I'm in that threshold where that pump is going to go, but I still have the redundancy. And so, planned or unplanned, a lot of times redundancy is, a very good
Cor-
metric.
Correct. So today we have redundancies all over the place, right? But you have it in banks, you have it in brokers, you have it at the New York Stock Exchange, you have it at Nasdaq, you have it. Everyone's really got a redundancy. Certainly, anyone in the financial services industry has a redundancy. I mean, they're actually they're required to have a redundancy. Um,
What came
by
first, 9/11 or Fight Club? I feel like that was the premise behind Fight Club, wasn't it? The
Yeah, I think it was the premise behind Fight Club. I think it
um
was.
and
But one way or the other, so it was that event, that I think we've talked about before. But one way or the other, it was that event that that really woke the country up. Because prior to that, everything that traded on the New York traded at New York, right? The Nasdaq traded Nasdaq, New York traded New York stocks. You couldn't cross pollinate. You couldn't trade Nasdaq names on New York. You couldn't trade New York names on Nasdaq until that event. Because what that event caused us to realize is that you know the setup we had was very last century, right? The world had changed, technology had changed, the whole idea of terrorism had changed, and so therefore we needed to update and move into the 21st century, which we did. So today the New York Stock Exchange still acts as kind of the face of U.S. financial markets, but it only does about 20% or 22% of the total volume that trades. Everything else, the other 80%, trades on alternative venues and the NASDAQ and other exchanges, right? There are 10 exchanges that exist today. And then there are 40 or 50 different dark pools where they also trade stocks that are not exchanges. They're owned by the brokers and the banks. And they're very profitable. So the banks and the brokers aren't going to let them go. But that was also born out of the events of 9/11. While they had been designed and developed prior to 9/11, they weren't really catching fire. But after 9/11, they really caught on fire. And today they're an integral part of the way stocks trade, right? And why it can be at times so volatile because there are so many venues where stock is trading, and the computer, the automation, the technology connects them all together. And so you got day traders now that are trading for thousandths of a penny, right? They want to buy something at 20 spot 0001 and they can sell it in a different venue at 20 spot 0005, which sounds like nothing to you and me, right? It's four thousandths of a penny. But if you do that all day long in 1,000 share lots and 500 share lots, it ends up, do the math, it ends up being a lot of money over time.
Sure. And that's so essentially the New York Stock Exchange as a physical building has become what the king and queen of England are. They're just a figurehead, right? It's
It,
just
it,
a
it is a figurehead, but listen, it still represents what it still does is it is still a symbol of America, capitalism, freedom, entrepreneurship. I mean, in that sense, it still is, right? And there's a cachet about having your company listed on the New York Stock Exchange. There is, let's be honest, right? People go and they list on the New York Stock Exchange, it's like, my God, I made it. And they have. But the truth is, the reality is because of the way technology is today and because of the technology we have, it plays a minor role in terms of trading, but it plays a major role in terms of appearance and authenticity and that kind of thing, right?
that's why the Mandami race was a huge thing for a lot of people that didn't even live in New York, because New York City is that idea that the heart of
Correct.
capitalism. And then all of a sudden you just put a democratic socialist involved, and then all of a sudden it's like, man, you're changing up the symbol. That's like kind of revamping the American flag.
Correct.
Like it's not just, I mean, even down to smaller companies like Cracker Barrel, like a rebranding is like it
Well,
hits
you
something
saw
at
what
your
happened
core.
with Cracker Barrel, right?
Right.
That was a massive rebranding. It was a huge mistake, but it was a massive rebranding.
And yeah, and so political systems do it. Everybody seems to do it, but you've got like people still need, there's a psychological component to a lot of this stuff. And I don't think a lot of people understand that. The reason that they don't get rid of the Queen of England or the King of England is because they need that. It draws their country together from an unquantifiable psychological thing, you know?
Yep, 100%. Anyway, so let's talk about let's talk. What do you want to talk about? Markets first.
Sure, we can talk about markets.
Um, Okay, so I will tell you, I'll start this by saying a lot of the stuff that happened in the first quarter was not on my radar in January when we started the year, right? I didn't have $100 barrel oil priced into my kind of my view. I didn't have this Iranian conflict certainly type worked into my view. I don't think many analysts did. There might have been talk of ruffling feathers and all that, but I don't think anybody in January had the conflict that we've been watching on their radar in January, right? Nor do I
Right.
think they had the oil price in there on their radar either. But that being said, if you've watched what's happened ever since this conflict began, there's every reason for the market to have really, really backed off, right? Because it caught us out of surprise, right? You woke up Saturday morning to the headline that we started bombing Iran and Israel started bombing Iran and the strait was closed and oil skyrocketed and the market did back off, but it didn't collapse. And I think that's a key point, right? Yeah, we saw, at one point, the Nasdaq was down just over 10%, which puts it in correction zone. But the S&P for the year was only down about 7%, which was still well within what's considered normal. Now, if you look at where it was off its high, then yeah, it was down, I think, 11% at one point. But for the year, it was only down 7%. And so when you think about all the stuff that was happening that could have caused complete chaos, quite honestly, I'm fairly impressed that the market held in as well as it did. Now, there are individual names that got beat up. A lot of them were getting beat up even before that happened. Technology was a space that was getting beat up even before. But we came into the year with technology feeling a bit stretched, right? I was in the camp that it had been stretched for a while, that I wasn't chasing some of those names that were trading at multiples that I couldn't justify, which means the stock I owned already was the stock I was going to own. If they pulled back, then I'd buy more. But if they were going to continue to be stretched, I wasn't going to buy them, and I was going to take new money and allocate it to
Because you anticipated it
new
was going to
places.
drop.
Right,
Correct. Yeah.
right. And now, look, now Microsoft is off 36% off of its all-time high at 530, traded all the way down to 350. That to me is a screaming buy. So yes, did I start buying Microsoft again for myself? 100%. But if it runs right back up to 520, I'm not buying it again. Actually, if it trades much higher than 370 or so, I'm probably not going to chase it. But below 370, I personally would be buying Microsoft, right? But that's just the opportunities you have to look at. That the chaos that this has created has in fact created opportunities for a long-term investor. It always creates opportunity for the day trader because the day trader is in and out, in and out, in and out. The day trader wants lots of noise and lots of volatility because that's how they make money. The long-term trader wants to eliminate the noise and wants to just find the
See the
opportunities that are
see
created
the
in the
trends
chaos.
past see the trends
Right.
past the fog of war.
Correct. And so I was quite impressed with the way the market held up, quite honestly, over this last month and a half. And now we have this ceasefire, and you saw what happened on Wednesday. They announced the ceasefire, and the market went from below all three trend lines, rocketed higher, right up through all three trend lines, sitting right on it, sitting right on the short-term trend line right now. Do I think it's going to hold? No, I think we're going to have more volatility. Oh, at least over the next 2 weeks as we see how these negotiations go. Because remember, the ceasefire is just a pause. It's not a settlement. It's not a finality. It's not over. It's just at the moment a pause. And so I think the market will remain volatile as long as oil remains in the high 90s. The market's going to remain volatile. And if they don't, if Trump and the administration doesn't get a chance to bring this to an end, fairly soon, the problem is going to be that oil stays elevated into May and into June. And by the time the midterms then are only 4 months away, and people are going to get, they're already frustrated, but they're going to get more frustrated. And then it's going to create political chaos in this country because then, you have to worry about how the midterms are going to go. And I came into the year with the assumption that that the Democrats were going to take the House, but that the Senate Republicans are going to maintain control of the Senate. And in that case, you're going to have a split Congress, which, by the way, the market loves. And the market loves a split Congress because what it does, either nothing gets done because it's split, or talking heads and the cooler heads and the more moderate heads from both parties come to the middle and they eliminate the fringes on both ends. So you eliminate the ultra MAGA guys, you eliminate the far left progressives, and the moderates come to the middle to get anything done. The market actually likes that. If you look at the prediction markets today, Kalshi and some of the others, they have the Republicans losing the House, and they have it's 50-50 on the Senate, which is, it wasn't that a month
Right.
ago, right? But it is 50-50 now. And if it stays elevated like this, oil and CPI, you saw the inflation report came out on Friday, and it ticked higher, although we expected it to tick higher, so it wasn't a surprise. The surprise for me was that it wasn't worse than even the higher expectation, because that would have been bad. In fact, it was a little bit better than what the expectation was, so that's a positive. But again, if oil stays like this for another 3 weeks, next month CPI is going to continue to be elevated because it was the top line number where we saw all the inflation. And if you take the core number, which actually eliminates energy and food because they're very volatile, inflation came in less than expected. So you can see it's all about energy right now, right? It's all about the price of oil. But the price of oil, means something for everybody, whether you're filling up your car, whether you're filling up oil to heat your house, whatever it is.
Buying
It
something on
means something to
Amazon, it's got
everybody.
to get trucked to you.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, and right, transportation for food and other material, other stuff, manufactured stuff, whatever. It's all gonna get out of it. And I told this story yesterday. It's funny. I drive an Infiniti QX60, which is like the SUV, and I don't drive that much because my office is 6 miles from my house, so I might drive 12 miles a day, and then I drive locally. I'm not driving 80 miles a day every day. Right? So I might fill up my car once every week and a half. Maybe it's every 2 weeks. So I went to the pump the other day. I think it was Thursday. I ran it right down to where it was almost no gas left in my car because I wanted to see what it was going to cost me to fill it up completely. And it cost me $82. Now, 2 months ago, it would have cost me $52. It cost me $82. And I looked at the price of gas on the tank on the machine. It was $4.15. I hadn't realized we went from 2 months ago I was paying $2.95. Now I'm paying $4.15. I was like, holy shit!
Right.
But it is what it is, and so that's going to be a problem, especially for people that have to fill up their tank every week because they're driving so many miles, right?
Yeah, I realize that the price of gas, a lot of times I don't pay attention because I'm like you.
Yeah.
My vehicle gets filled up every week and a half. I
Right.
got guys that have to fill up my work vehicles for me twice a week, and all of a
Twice a
sudden,
week.
and they borrow one card, and that card of mine tells me anytime it's used. It's saying, hey, you
Yep.
bought a coffee at
Yep.
7-Eleven and it was $6.03. And
Yep.
then, all of a sudden it's like, hey, somebody ran the card for $80, $90,
Yeah.
which in a
Yep.
big van, we got utility vans. Those big vans, that's the going price. And then so
Understood.
a lot of times I
Understood.
won't squabble about it. And all of a sudden I called one of my guys. I said, man, that bill you just gave me was $130. He's like, oh, the gas? I'm like, yeah, did two of you guys go at the same time? And he goes, no. He goes, didn't you see the price of gas is like four something a gallon? And I'm like,
Yeah.
holy smokes.
Yeah. So it's crazy. I mean, so in that sense, it's crazy that if it stays like that for another 5 or 6 weeks, we're going to get into June already. And June
Right.
is going to be, here we are, summertime, it's driving season. People go to the Cape, they go to wherever they go, the shore, wherever they're going, to the lakes, wherever they're going. But they start to drive more, and it's going to become more. It's going to
Oh,
become even more noticeable, right?
and then
If
then
it
they
isn't
might
already.
drive. It might curb a lot of that travel.
Correct. It might curb it, and it might, maybe not, but either way, it's going to be a problem for the midterm elections. And then if it flips both houses and it's democratically controlled, then it creates a whole nother level of chaos, because then what happens? The Democrats right away, because they've already said they're going to do it if they take control, they're going to impeach Trump. Okay, so we got to go through that again. And they'll succeed this time, I guess. If they control both houses, it'll be easier for them to try to do it. And then you have Trump out, you have JD Vance in, and you have a whole nother set of concerns. Not that it's a disaster, but it's just concern, right? That'll
Right.
cause anxiety for investors, anxiety in the markets. And so that's what you have to kind of be worried about. So that's all the things now that I'm thinking about in the future, which doesn't mean I'm negative on investing or I'm negative on the market. I actually think we're going to make our way through this. And in the end, once we start to see the benefits of the big, beautiful bill, and they're going to start to kick in, this quarter and next quarter, you're going to start to see the fruits of that labor come out, and you'll see it in the economic reports. You'll see it in earnings start this week. So you're going to hear from the C-suite. They're going to talk about what the next 4 to 6 months look like for them. I suspect that they're still going to be fairly positive, but if we suddenly see a lot of cautiousness in the commentary, then you'll see how the market will react, right? Because then the market will reprice the expectation. It's all about the expectation because the market really prices. The market's not trading on valuations today. It's trading on valuations, what it thinks they're going to be 3 and 6 months out.
Right.
So if that changes because the C-suite starts to be more cautious, all that means is, okay, people are not going to pay the same multiples. Stock prices will come in a little bit until until supply equals demand, essentially, right? So there you go. That's
Yeah.
that's my story.
So so to jump back to the current event side of things, I sometimes it makes you wonder too, because like this whole like if you look at like how most of the Middle East in the last like 6 to 8 months has reacted to the way Donald Trump has been handling things, it's
Yeah,
almost like dealing with novice negotiators, right? I'm
correct.
sure you've got a wide variety of clients, right? And some know how to trade on the market, some have no idea. And then that's on the bottom of the no idea side of the spectrum is where like most of the Middle East is. They're kind of in their own little bubble. These are our philosophies. These are our things. These are how we do business. Now all of a sudden they're playing chess at a world scale. And the problem is you've got one of the best and people. I'm not an ultra MAGA guy. I'm not the guy that like, you know, when people go, oh, don't you, Donald Trump did this, Donald Trump did that. Like, I really don't try to drop Donald Trump's name that much because I'm not like an ultra.
Right.
He's our fearless leader. Drop to a knee. You know, I always make the joke with people, right, when they talk about January 6th. I always say, oh yeah, the day of our Lord. You know, I just that because it's a joke. I'm really pushing to the extreme. There are people that actually believe that is like the second coming of Jesus.
I, listen. I hear you. I completely hear you, which is what makes me crazy, right? Because
I you like the guy, but at the same time, he does fly off the handle, and you can
he,
read him, right? He's
he
an easy read.
that's right. He flies off the handle, and he needs to keep. He just needs to keep his mouth shut. He can't. He cannot help himself. Right. He
Right.
can't help himself.
But
The fact that he put out that tweet on Easter Sunday. I
praise
mean,
be to Allah.
the praise to Allah, and you better fucking open up the street. I mean, it was just. I'm sitting there going, how could Susie, what's her name, Susie Miles, whatever her name is, his chief of staff, like I'm thinking, okay, Susie, where are you when he's doing this,
Yeah,
or when
she's like
someone's doing it, right?
sometimes being part of that cabinet is like being the guy who cleans up after Aesop
Uh,
fables. You know, you just sit there with a broom and a trash can and just.
Agreed. No,
But
agreed, 100%.
if you can look past the chaos tweets or the truths or whatever they call them now, if you can look past all that, he's still like a shark in the water when it comes to trade negotiations, whether it's trade
Yes.
negotiations, whether it's a deal, whether it's ending a war, and all that bad publicity, all the people that just don't like him because they judge him based on that emotional value of a tweet. It's like, man, you got to look past that. And if most Americans could look past that, they'd be like, holy shit, we've got like the best guy to actually handle these novice negotiators. A lot of the Arabic countries are novice negotiators. If you took somebody who is one of the what do they call them, the apex predators in the field for being a negotiator, and you said, wow, well, I would rather, even though he's an asshole, I would rather deal with an asshole as the guy in the negotiating room, right? Like you're getting divorced, you want the cutthroat lawyer, you don't want the guy who's, oh my geez, everything scares them. Like
100%. 100%. So he's bold, he's brash, he's offensive. I get it. I get it. But you know what? In the end, he is the president. The same way Joe Biden was the president. You may not
right,
have liked him. He wasn't bold and brash because he hardly said anything.
right.
But there were plenty of people that didn't like him, but they didn't. they didn't suffer from this Biden derangement syndrome the way people suffer from Trump derangement syndrome. They
Right.
really do. It's crazy
And
to me.
And so, like, where you and I can see past all the nonsense that Trump puts out,
Right.
the it seems like mainstream media has kind of created this cloud of war around the markets. Because if you could see past it, you would actually the markets would be less volatile.
100%. 100%. And the other thing is, the main and the mainstream media, it's frustrating to me because they're the ones that suffer from this Trump derangement syndrome, and everything is from the perspective of negative, right? They accentuate the negative. There's nothing on ABC, CBS, NBC that I ever see is even slightly positive about the administration. I just don't see it, right? I
Right.
don't see it.
There's never an attaboy moment.
There's never an
The-
attaboy moment. And quite honestly, for anyone to think that what we did, we, the United States and Israel, by the way, taking out Iran's ability to threaten the world, if anybody thinks that that wasn't a good thing, I want to sit down and talk to them, because for as much as they said, oh, we don't do it, we can't do it, we don't have missiles, they launched a missile all the way to Diego Garcia, which means they could have launched a missile right into Europe. So all of Europe should be up in arms. And quite honestly, Americans should be up in arms.
right. Yeah.
Right? Because they lied, and we took them out. And so now I don't know why people in this country are not celebrating the fact that we took them out.
Right. Just like that. What was it? The entire a good example of how they lie and how they try to they're like a really novice PR team. Like we blew up our own ships that got like stuck in the sand,
Yeah.
trying to extract that pilot.
Yeah.
And they took videos of the exploding ships and going, look what we did. Like,
Right.
wait, you made the Americans blow up the ships? Congratulations. This isn't going to be a return to Afghanistan. Like, we're not going to give you our
No, but and
helicopters.
that's the part that frustrates me, and it frustrates a whole lot of people, right? But I just think, as an American, the fact that we took out, they were the biggest bully in the Middle East. Ask any of the Gulf states, because they'll say the same thing. The Gulf states are so happy that we've done that. They're very happy that we've done that. But why people in this country are celebrating, like they're trying to they're trying to make it a failure and then celebrate it, which is crazy to me. It's
Right.
just crazy to me.
Yeah. And
Anyway,
no, it's all right. It's just that it's those little things though. Like I'm a novice with the market
right,
compared to compared to Kenny Polcari. I'm a novice. I'm just an HVAC guy that's got some money in the market,
right,
and I watch the news. And
right,
sometimes I get these little epiphany moments where I'm like, man, just as a regular Joe, like if people could just see certain things from the middle, or I'm coming from the right of middle, like if people could see that, they like the market wouldn't be as volatile as it was. But the problem is you've got other, and you wonder like why, like certain things happen for a reason, and certain things, you know, there's no such thing as a coincidence, as some people would say. So it's
correct.
you just wonder like why people create so much volatility. Is it really to overthrow Trump? Is it really to do this? Or is there like maybe they're buying put options?
Yeah. Well. Listen, and don't discount that, because someone is obviously participating and making money out of all this chaos. But that happens on both sides. Let's be honest. It
Sure.
happens on both
Oh
sides,
yeah.
right? They leak. People jump in front. They buy the options. They do this. They're on both sides.
Right.
So,
You if you
which only for me is another reason why anybody who's in the administration or elected government should not be allowed to have a personal trading account. Their families, the wives, the kids should not be allowed. Sorry, you want to go into public service, you can have the personal trading account when you get done. But
right.
these guys that spend 80 years in public service and elected government, and all their families participate in all that, is bullshit in my mind.
Right.
Complete bullshit.
Right, because they got insider knowledge.
They have
Right.
inside information.
You knew
If I
you
have
knew we were
inside
gonna
information, I'm going to jail.
right. You knew you were you if you knew we were going to bomb Iran before everybody else did, you know what I'm buying? Like I'm buying stock in steel manufacturers, I'm buying futures on stuff.
Yeah, and the aerospace and defense names, of course you are, right?
Right.
And if you know that the ceasefire agreement is going to be announced at 6:30 after the market closes, which is going to be a huge positive, you're going to go along the market by before 4 o'clock in the afternoon,
Right.
right? So, but
But
here's the part that frustrates you about that too. It's not like you can't see who's doing this with all the surveillance and technology. All you have to do is go back, see who bought the biggest positions in those products who went long at 359 on Wednesday afternoon and trace it right back. So for them to say, well, we don't know, what do you mean you don't know? Of course you know. All you have
Right.
to do is go back and look,
Right. It's
right?
it's 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 just like it's like crime was years ago.
Right. Because if I bought 100 shares of the S&P at 359 and the next day I sold it up, they'd come knocking on my door. What did you know? Who did you talk to? How did
Right.
you know that? Why did you buy it at 359? It's crazy to me, but whatever.
No, and it is one of those things, and it's so I guess to pivot a little, well, not even to pivot. So here's because this is something that's controversial. I used to follow Crane and Company quite often. Um, they've moved to different markets, so I don't get to see them as often, but they follow a lot of sports stuff and sports betting.
Yep.
And it's one of there's always a huge debate whether, athletes should or should not be able to bet on the market. And it's like, and from that same perspective, like, no, you're in the game because then at what point would you be able to throw the game? Right, to throw the punches. It's like when the mob was allegedly involved in the boxing circuit,
Yep.
when they took over
When they
Vegas.
when they were, or you mean that they are?
No, yeah, well, I guess when Hollywood published it before they got told to stop, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But like the ceasefire though, like I have a feeling that ceasefire is like you said, it's going to end. But why is it going to end? It's going to end because you have as much as Trump can be irrational on Twitter. I'm pretty sure that the people in Iran are way more, well, not the people, but the administration in Iran are way more volatile. If you could see what their Twitter on Al Jazeera looks like, you know what I mean? Like they on their news network, they're going to be like, nope, we're not taking this. They're going to act like very not novice is like a good catch-all for people that are very like emotionally unskilled. Like if you go to a field of something that you're not immersed in. If I took you and brought you into the HVAC field, things would frustrate you. Those frustrations come from like the emotional lizard brain of the world, right? The things that
Yep.
like you start getting really confident in something, you're pulling from that logical part of your brain versus the more primitive, the more emotional state of your brain. And I feel like these people aren't used to this kind of chess game on the world stage. And so they're going to be very emotional. They're going to say, nope, screw you. We're putting our foot down. And they're negotiating from a position of weakness, and the ceasefire is going to end, and it's going to be to their detriment.
Yeah, I agree. But listen, I hope that JD Vance is there now in Islamabad. I hope that there is real movement on the ceasefire and the ceasefire ends. I don't want to see this go on. I
Sure.
don't. I don't think anyone wants to see it go on. But but Iran has to understand they can't be a bully anymore. They can't be threatening the world. They can't be telling everyone who can live and who can die. They can't be doing that.
Right.
And so if this is the way that it has to get done, it's the way that has to get done. And I think the bulk of the world, quite honestly, whether they want to say it out loud or not, I think they're damn happy that
It's
we ended up doing what we did.
it's that quiet part. Nobody ever
Yeah,
wants
it's
to
the
say the
quiet
quiet
part.
part.
100%. 100%. Anyway.
You're
So
good.
that's the deal. So that's what I think investors need to think about when they're just thinking about how to allocate money to the market. I don't think this situation should cause you not to allocate. At the very least, if you're not yet sure about stocks or you think they're going to go on sale a little bit more, you should at least be allocating money to the money market fund in your investment account so that it's there for when you need it, right? Because putting money in an investment account is a decision. You're only going to earn whatever the money market fund is paying. Right now, it's probably paying about 3.5%. It's paying you something, certainly better than the bank is going to pay you.
Right.
But you at least want to stick to that discipline of taking X dollars, whatever it is. It's $100, it's $500, it's $1,000, it's $5,000, whatever the number is. Put it there. So you put it in the investment account, so you know you've got it there. And then when you sense that now's the time to buy, then you got the money there. You don't have to worry about transferring it in. Where's it coming from? Oh my God, I don't have it. You have it. It's there. So that's what people should continue to do, even if they're not putting it to work right away, right? They should put it in that account so they have it. So when they want to do it, they can do it. Because as an advisor, right? I mean, we manage over $2 billion of investor assets. So, a lot of the accounts, some of them are completely fully invested because that's the way the client wants to be. There are others that want to be more cautious. So we might have 5 or 7% of the assets in cash just waiting, right? And for our modeled funds, that's what we do, right? We've got 5 modeled funds. So again, we're very specific in terms of what we're talking about. We have weekly investment committee meetings. We go over what's happening. We look at all the names. We look at the thesis. Have the names changed? Has the story changed in those stocks to cause us to either sell the stock, buy more, or is it just a price thing? If they backed off on price and the story's same, then we'll put more money to work, whether
Right.
whether the bombs are dropping or not, because you have to take advantage when the opportunity presents itself.
Sure. That's no, that's no, it's really good advice out there. And so like one of the things that you just said that like I'm guilty of, right? And you've told me this for years to keep putting money aside every week, and then every couple times a year I'll put in, $100 here, $100 there, a couple
Right,
hundred
whatever
bucks.
it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And I probably should do better at making an auto draft to the account, $50 a week,
The
whatever it is.
reason you make the auto draft is because then you don't have to do it. It just happens electronically.
Right.
The auto draft happens. You don't even miss it, especially if it's $50 or it's $100. You don't even miss it. It just happens. It's like paying your electric bill, right?
Right.
It's what I say is you got to pay yourself first, right? So you pay yourself whatever it is, $100 a week,
You and
or $100 a month, whatever the number is that you can afford. You just set it up and it's done. It just happens. And you might sweep it from your checking account into your investment account, government money market fund, but at least you know it's there. So then when you want to, you go, okay, I get $3,000 in the government money. I want to put it to work now. And so you put it to work.
right. Yeah,
Right?
you and Robert Kiyosaki. Pay yourself first.
Pay yourself first. 100% you're going to pay yourself first.
That's the rule of
And
thumb.
that's what a lot of people don't do, right? A lot of people think, well, I pay myself first because I pay my mortgage. Okay, that's true. You're paying down your mortgage. So are you paying yourself? Yes. But I'm talking about paying yourself where you're actually putting your money in a place where you can invest it in
Right.
stocks, right? Because yes, you're investing in your home. I get that. That's great. But unlike stocks, you can also invest money in stocks and do very well.
And so I think having one of those KISS philosophies, sometimes people can trip over it, right?
Yeah.
That keep it simple, right?
Yeah.
So if you like, because I've seen a lot of people, I have a lot of tenants and stuff over the years that they'll pay themselves first, but
Yeah.
it usually comes in the form of they'll make that claim like I always pay myself first. Well, but they do it in the form of like alcoholism or
Right.
like buying too much weed. They'll invest in things
Right.
that are really detrimental, but they're more hedonic in pleasure and whatever else. And they're like, well, yeah, but I always pay myself first. It's like, yeah, but you're not future self. You're paying current self.
Right. But even if you don't listen, even if you're not sure and you don't know, at the very least, you could put the money. You could just keep buying your S&P 500 fund, right? The ITOT or the VTI. You
Right.
should just do that because that gives you broad exposure to the U.S. market. The ITOT is a total return ETF, which means that includes not only the growth in the stocks but the dividends that are reinvested, right? So that's a great one. If you only have one or you want to start somewhere, you should start with
It's
either
better
the
than
VTI, which is
nothing.
the Vanguard total return, or the ITOT, which is the S&P total return.
Right. Which is it's better than nothing. And I did this with my kids too, because I told them, hey guys, I will match you with, like, because they all got some money coming, for birthdays, Easter, whatever. And this
Right.
was a couple years ago. Then I said to them, I said, hey, listen, guys, I will, you give me, you're getting $100 a piece, right? So if you give me whatever you give me out of that $100, I will match it as an
Right.
incentive. If you
Right.
spend it on stupid stuff, like I think you and I have talked about that, Robux, the
Right.
kids games, stuff like that, currency in video games.
Right.
You know what? I'm gonna discern you from doing that.
Right.
I'm gonna let you do it because you got to make the decision.
But you're
But
not matching it.
I'm not matching anything. I'm not buying you
Right.
double the
Right.
Robux. But so
Right.
my
But if they
youngest
want to
goes.
buy, if they want to buy the S&P, you'll double it.
You're right. And so
Right.
any one of them who gave me money went into a custodial account on E-Trade.
Yeah.
And it started with my youngest son. He was like 5 at the time. He's like, "Dad, I want to invest because that's what you said I should do. You make it seem like I should do that." And so he gave me all of his money. He gave me his like $50. And so I said, "Well, you just made 100. You just made 50 on
Right.
top of it." And
Correct.
then the other kids were like, "Oh, well, that's not that big of a deal." Like, okay, guys, he did it, and there was a promo going on. So it was a new account, and it was a new social, and he got E-Trade matched it. So he made $200 off his 50. And the other kids were like, "Well, I want that." And I'm like, "Well, you missed the promo. It was first come, first serve. That's how it went." And now all of a sudden he's made 30% on his $200 investment on top of, like I think he's at like 250 or 260 or something on his investment into the ITOT. And the other kids, like now my daughter's starting to follow suit. She's the oldest of them, and she's starting to follow suit. And from that point, E-Trade pulls out of my personal bank account every year on the kids' birthdays. It'll pull $50, a gift from dad, into those accounts. Each account for each kid, $50 a piece. They just get this investment into the account, and we started that a couple years ago.
And that's good, right? That's a good way to get them not only interested, but it's a good way to show them what a disciplined investing approach will do.
Right. And
right. And people think, you start $50. What difference does $50 make? Guess what? It's going to make a big difference. If you put 50 away every week, suddenly 50 becomes 200, 200 becomes 400, 400 becomes, right? It starts to grow.
Right. The same way it can hemorrhage. What was it? Kevin O'Leary says the same thing that the average adult will just and he doesn't say adult. He says like lower income individual, right? So somebody that's in the poorer spectrum, what you find is they'll spend 15 grand a year on stupid shit like coffee, like just going out to drink a coffee instead of like, hey, I could just get a bigger thermos. I could bring my lunch from home. Just 15 grand a year. And to you, or, 15 grand a year isn't a ton. It's substantial, but it isn't a ton. But at the same time, 15 grand is like half of those people's, half or a third of their income for the year.
Right. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But, I think people just need to understand that. And they also need to understand the sooner you start, clearly, the more you're going to have.
Right.
Right.
So my daughter's gonna be 11 this year, and she's the one following suit in her younger brother's footsteps, right? So but she is old enough where she can actually do viable work with me. I've taught her how to, paint ceilings and cut in and sweep up after a job site when we renovate an apartment. And so I'm like, listen, if you want a job with me, anytime that I give you money, 50% of it has to get invested. 50% of it, because the money that she makes, she doesn't have any. And I said that percentage can go down when you get older because you've got more responsibilities, more liabilities, more things you have to pay for. But as a kid who doesn't have to pay for anything besides stick on nails and stickers and candy, like you can afford to take 50% of it and tuck it away into this custodial account and make money.
Yeah. Yeah, and they should. And then once they see it, the truth is, once they start seeing, so after the first year, after 6 months, they're going to see how the account
it has grown,
reacts, and how the money grows, right?
Right.
And then they'll see. Listen, if they buy something that pays a dividend every quarter, they're going to see even a little bit more money deposited into their account because they owned a stock that paid them a dividend for owning it.
Right. Yeah, and I have all those accounts set up per my friend Kenny's advice to auto reinvest the dividends.
Auto reinvest the dividends, 100%.
Right. And I explained that to the kids when I set it up. The 18-year-old, she's a part of this too. She doesn't do as much with it. Obviously, she's working through having to pay, car insurance, and she's learning the real world side of things.
Yeah.
But
that's right. As long as she's doing something.
Right.
Right. It's about the discipline about doing something.
Right.
So, what else do you want me to
tell you? Anything else? Well, I think last year at this time, we talked about AI in the market. I'm sure we briefly touched about it 6 months ago, but we were talking about Grok.
AI is still very much, I still feel the same way, right? I think we're very much in the early stages. And this whole story about, tech was stretched and, AI is going to disrupt the world and going to eliminate all those jobs. I'm not in that camp. Yes, it's going to disrupt. Every industrial revolution we've ever gone through has disrupted some sector, multiple sectors, but we seem to have always come back because new jobs are created, and the same thing is happening in the tech space, right? While it is eliminating some jobs, and look, let's be honest, I was completely eliminated from the New York Stock Exchange because of technology. The job I did running around, one of those guys that screamed and yelled, that bought and sold stock all day long on behalf of institutions around the world,
Right.
that job no longer exists. Technology completely wiped it out. And so, I understand. I'm one of the guys that got wiped out, quote unquote, from a job.
Right. But you didn't
But what
die.
did I do? I pivoted, and there's a new job, right? There's another opportunity. And so that's what's going to end up happening. I'm still in the same space. I'm kind of doing the same thing. I'm not actually the one anymore who's buying and selling stock. I did that for 40 years. I don't need to do that anymore. Now I'm talking to people like you. I'm talking to high net worth investors, ultra high net worth investors. I'm drafting plans. I'm helping them put together long range plans, not only for them, for their children, for their grandchildren, right? Helping them build generational wealth.
See, and that's so yeah, and then everybody panics about technology.
Right.
We're so obviously the AI market is not going anywhere.
No,
It's
and no,
not
and it's only going. No, it's not only is it not going anywhere, it's going to become more sophisticated.
right.
Right.
Yeah, no, I mean, shit, in the year that I've been using Grok, like Grok is my go-to. When I started, when I started dabbling in them, like I think I used ChatGPT for like, 4 questions. And then
Yeah.
after that, I kind of went over to the Copilot before it was Copilot, for image generation to see how goofy it was. You go down a rabbit hole. Um, and now like I kind of just stick with Grok. I've tested Gemini out. It's all right. Grok doesn't always give me the best answers, but
You have to be careful because they do hallucinate, right? Hallucinate is like they make up stuff or they get it wrong. All of them get it wrong at some point. So you have to you can't just put the question in there and assume what they're telling you is 100% correct because
right.
it isn't. You have to have some sense. So every once in a while, like I use ChatGPT a lot. I've tried Gemini. Um, but like I asked it a question, right? I like to test it sometimes and ask it a question, and the answer comes back wrong, and I say, "Chat, you're wrong. That's not the answer at all. Here's what happened, and here's the number, right? If the S&P closed, I say, what did the S&P do? So it might give me what the S&P did 3 days ago. I go, it's incorrect. I want to know what the S&P did yesterday. Right? What's
Right.
the number? What did it do? Why did it do that? And
It's
so then it goes back and it apologizes to me. Oh, you're right. I'm wrong. I made a mistake. I'll try to correct it. Blah, blah. And then it corrects it. But you have to have some sense of what you think the answer is versus just depending on them to give you an answer.
right, right. Because then, yeah, well, I mean, that's
Because
what
then you
happens.
could be wrong.
Right. Well, that's what happens with mainstream media. I mean,
Right. 100%.
there's people that are always questioning, always vigilant, and then you have the people that are just willing to just eat whatever people give them, and
That's right.
and that's where you get so much animosity in the market.
When
But
you get animosity just amongst people, right?
yeah,
It is really
confirmation
causing so
bias.
much division amongst people, right? Why can't I don't ever remember when I was a kid. Look, I'm 65 now, right? I don't remember when I was, even in my 30s and 40s, that the political environment was such that it created hatred on both sides. I can't even have a conversation with some people because they're on a different political spectrum than I am, and you can't have a conversation because it turns into a fight, and I don't want to fight. I'm not interested in fighting. If
Right.
you want to have a conversation, fine, but if you want to fight, then I'm not fighting. So guess what? No politics. Don't if you want to be friends, I don't want to talk politics, or we can't talk politics, right?
Right. Yeah. And I'll
But
tip
it
your
was never like that when I was 20 or 30 or 40 years old.
right. When I was on a when I was on the local common council, like we would get in a drop, and this is the first time I ever experienced this, just because of like the generational gap. I and this is where I can see where like you watch old television shows and you watch two people argue and then they'll go have a beer.
Right,
Um,
right,
I would get into drop
right.
like knockout, drag out fights with other aldermen on the local
Yep,
common council over
yep,
budgetary items,
yep.
and then afterwards you'd walk back in the next day and it was like you nothing had happened.
100%. And listen, on the floor of the exchange all day long, I would fight. You and I could be best friends, but if we were in the same crowd on opposite sides, I'm going to fight like a son of a bitch to do what the right thing by my client, and you're going to do the same thing for yours. But we go back and forth all day long. But then at 4 o'clock, the bell rings. You and I going out to dinner. We're going to have a beer, whatever,
Right.
right? But that doesn't seem to be the way it can be anymore.
And that's why I think
It's
I think a
sad,
lot of
quite honestly.
and I think a lot of that stuff leads to a lot of the mental health stuff because people can't
100%.
let things go. So now all of a
Right.
sudden it's like holding on to a tumor like it's some kind of gold and it grows and it gets worse and you're like, well shit, now by this point like I've got this terrible thing.
Right.
Um and because people can't because if you can talk to somebody, if you can argue with them, at least you're letting the idea kind of fester and grow or
Yeah.
fester and die. And like it's
Right.
got to do something, but if you hold on to it, it's just going to breed like incontent
Yeah.
and anger.
And it doesn't do anything for your mental health at all.
Right.
It keeps you
So,
angry. And there's nothing good about you just angry all the time. It takes a lot of energy to be angry,
right.
right? Well, I
Now
don't
you're
want to
doing
be
it for no
angry. I don't want
reason.
to be angry.
Right. Now you're doing it for no reason.
That's
And
right. Right. Anyway, so there you go.
yeah. Well, hey,
But here's the deal. I don't think from an investment perspective, right? I think the markets are going to remain a fairly volatile, until we get to some clarity on the conflict, right? Remembering that geopolitical headlines and issues create short-term chaos, but they don't ever price stocks in the long term because
right.
stocks are priced based on the economy, economic activity, margins, profitability, products that they're selling or not selling. That's what prices stocks in ultimately in the long term. Geopolitics and even local, U.S. politics create short-term chaos and volatility. But sometimes in that chaos is the opportunity because things get mispriced, things creates anxiety, and so people hit the sell button right away when they should be hitting the buy button. And so I think there's going to be continued volatility. I think the worst is over from the downside. We traded as low as 63.50 on the S&P. I don't think we're going to go there again, unless, of course, something happens that's, once again, completely unexpected.
Right.
Um, then I think there might be more pressure. But if we go along and we're negotiating and it looks like we're making progress and other nations are coming to the table and all that stuff, then I think the markets will get less volatile and they'll start to refocus. And you might see that now starting this week with earnings. As earnings start to come out, you're going to see the focus is going to go. They'll put this Iran thing on the back burner while these negotiations are going on, and they'll start to focus on, okay, what's happening in this country, what's happening in the economy, what's happening in individual names that are being reported.
Now,
So, and
just
in the end, I think we'll be fine.
you're so from a I don't want to play the devil's advocate, but like, so you say that like global politics, global issues, conflicts don't set prices on stocks for the long term, but
Correct.
they can, I guess,
Create
maybe
chaos.
I'm misperceiving this, but like the Ukraine conflict.
Yep.
When Ukraine started, there was a bunch of factories bombed by the Russians, things
Correct.
like that. They wiped out the ability for anybody to get 410A refrigeration because it's all blended over there, and there's certain
Right.
resources that they use to do it, which essentially then with US politics and trying to get rid of, you know, inefficient refrigerants, they eliminated 410A from the market entirely, and now all of a sudden that entire market's gone.
Right.
That entire
Right.
product. So if you were a company that was literally just making that, then so if you were to try to make it more of a universal topic, right? You blew up the widget factory. Widgets are only mined and made in Ukraine. You blow it up, you lost an entire industry. There's companies in the United States that are going bankrupt. Like that's, I mean, I
Well,
just,
but like that refrigeration thing you're talking about, haven't we been talking about that for a while? Wasn't there going to be this move away from that in the first place?
sure.
Okay, so that conversation had already started. So people were starting to reinvest in whatever the new technology was going to be. I wasn't going to continue to invest in the old technology, knowing that we're moving away from it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right?
So from a broader standpoint, it was inevitably going to drop to zero.
It was going to get eliminated, right? Because if
Right.
we're moving away from it, if the policy is this new refrigerant and this old one's going to be eliminated, at some point, either the companies that are making the old refrigerant are going to retool and make the new one, or they're going to go by the wayside.
Right. Which, if you talk to anybody in my industry, a lot of them will tell you that a lot of times they're in such a governmental push to get this technology out there that it's never ready to go to market when it goes to market. Like 410A was flawed from the jump. R12, R22 took, decades to come up with. And when it was
Right.
released, that stuff was phenomenal. And that's why it went longer spans. And then all of a sudden, the government's on this kick where we're starting to kind of evolve in this energy efficient
Right.
green space. The
How'd
ideas are
that work
evolving.
out?
Right.
How'd that work out?
The ideas are evolving faster
Right.
than the actual the products can actually come to fruition with R&D.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
and so like right now we have 454A, which is the new one. And I'm sure you guys deal with a lot of it down your way because we've moved away
Yeah.
from them.
In fact, it's funny because I think with the condo that I own, I bought 6 years ago, but the air conditioning is my air conditioner is probably about 10 or 12 years old.
So
So
it's
I think I actually have the old refrigerant.
you may have R22, but it's most likely a 410A.
Yeah, I don't know. So I don't know the particular.
So it'd
But
be
at
most
some
likely a
point,
410A, which you can still get it. It's hard to get R22. That stuff's like $2,000 a jug right now for a
right,
25-pound pail of it.
right,
410A is like 600. It might be even higher. I haven't priced it in a hot minute, but and then during the Ukraine war it was 600. Now that they're eliminating it, I'm sure it went down and came back up.
right,
The 454A, and this is something that like they tell you we got to get away from fossil fuels, right? 454A is a petroleum product. Like it's the same way
right,
when you buy a mini
right,
fridge, freezer, they say R400, R600. Those things are either refrigerant grade butane or refrigerant grade um, uh, propane.
right,
And so like they have all these fossil fuels that they're using as a refrigerant because they do work well, but they're all flammable. So now all
right.
of a sudden you've got things that are under high heat, high pressure, and so now when I'm installing an air conditioner at your house, I have to put in like, leak detectors to make sure that
Yeah,
there's no flammable gases and
right, right. And as you should, right? I mean, I guess that's safety stuff and all that. I get it. What I'm wondering is when my air conditioner, uh, uh, uh,
craps.
fails on me, then I have to put in the new system, right, or the latest technology,
You put
whatever
in the
it's going to
latest system, right? But do you like so I mean if you had a mini split, a lot of times, if you have like the Mitsubishi units on your wall, you'd
be.
end up
Yeah,
having to replace the heads and the condenser.
yeah.
If you have central air like a furnace, you
I
know,
have central air, but it's not a furnace because I don't have heat. I just have the air conditioner, right? But yeah, I have one central system.
so if you replace that, a lot of times the controls on them, essentially it is a furnace, right? It just doesn't
Yeah,
have the natural gas or it doesn't have electric
right,
heaters in it, or
right,
it just has an air coil on top, and you just swap that air coil for one that can handle the refrigerant that you're using.
right.
And then so a lot of times you can save the line set and you replace the condenser outside. So there's two pieces that you got to do depending on it. If the main guts of your unit, like the blower fan, the control boards, the thing that talks to the thermostat and the coil, like if that thing is getting older, you might have to make the decision, okay, I need an overhaul. But then you still leave the ductwork. The
But
ductwork
what?
almost
Yeah, right. You leave the duct room, but what's the unit outside? Is a condenser, isn't it?
condenser, correct? Yes.
And then inside you got the blower unit,
You have the evaporator. So
the
the
evaporator.
evaporator's inside. That's that gets nice and cold, and you have like essentially the unit itself, the furnace, right?
Yeah,
And like it's one of those things that or the air handler, right?
right.
In
Yeah,
your situation, we wouldn't call it a furnace because it doesn't have heat, right? So it's an air handler. So the
right,
air handler itself has the A coil sitting on top of it, and
right,
it would just blow over it. So you can just get one that's just an air handler, and you can get one that's if you have a heat pump, right? Like your refrigerant runs in the opposite direction, so instead of creating cold inside, it creates heat inside. It just blows over the air handler.
right. But what about? But do I need the big condenser unit outside, or can I? If I have to replace the air handler, do I have to replace the condenser too?
No, if the air handler goes and you don't have to touch the refrigerant side of the system, you can replace that independently. If it's
Oh,
getting
without
old, yeah, if you need to replace the refrigerant side, a lot of times you don't have to replace the air handler.
right,
Like if I install a furnace in someone's house, like hey, they got furnace, hey, we can add air conditioning later.
right.
We can keep their old air conditioner and
Yeah,
just swap out the furnace section,
yeah.
which is the air handler with the heating element. And it's one of those things. My industry, I've been trying to keep tabs on, but it is so volatile with, the government trying to switch things, and then you have people that are resistive in the market, right? Like I'm a technician in the field. I love my fossil fuels. Because you've got to burn what $4 in fossil fuels to make $1 in electricity. So it's
Yeah.
like the change of state from taking a refrigerant from a liquid to a vapor and vice versa. that hidden heat in BTUs between it, whether it's cooling BTUs or heating BTUs, that change of state, that hidden heat, that technology there is more efficient than burning of fossil fuels. The problem is it's you purchasing fossil fuels. It is cheaper for you to buy $1 worth of natural gas and burn it and get 96 cents, or even, your hot water tank is, if it's natural gas, it's 70% efficient, 75% efficient. So you're getting 75 cents for every dollar. But if you turn it into electricity, well, you might be paying $3 for that dollar, the equivalent in it. So it's the supply chain that actually gets you on the efficiency. The electric hot water tank is going to be like 99.9% efficient. The
Right.
problem is getting it to you. And
Right.
then when you start going into change of state and you're starting to use the technology itself, well, the refrigerant is actually significantly more, that there's the potential for more efficiency. It's just, is the technology incorporated into the equipment properly? Are we using the right refrigerants? And then you still have the supply chain issue. If you're up where
Okay.
I am and you're trying to pull heat out of the 32-degree air outside, probably not a big deal. You start trying to pull heat out of like negative 10-degree air, man, you better have a really expensive unit to do it. And it's
Yeah.
still not going to be the most cost effective way of doing it. And so they have these hybrid units now. And it's like, where below 10 degrees, we have the furnace actually kick on with natural gas, but we'll use a heat pump in between to give us heat. And our area, like, you don't have to be that efficient with air conditioning. A $250 unit on Amazon will get you all the air conditioning you could want and more. Like,
All
so
right. Well, anyway, so
sorry to brain dump on you.
no, that's right. Here we go. We've been doing this for about an hour now.
Okay.
Tell me what else you need. Otherwise, I got to hit the road.
No, no problem, buddy. I will let you go. Yeah, unless there's anything else that you want to talk on. Otherwise, we'll reconvene in 6 months.
No, I'm good. 6 months is fine. Reach out anytime. You know me. I love to talk to you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Me and my wife were talking about going down to Florida for a visit, and so Kenny Polcari and people on the other side of the state might be.
Are you coming to the East Coast or the West Coast?
We weren't sure. I think we were going to land somewhere near Tampa, and kind of we have friends on both sides,
Yeah.
and so we were going to just kind of like when you go to visit Ireland, you hit on one side of the coast and you just kind of tour around.
Yeah.
So instead
Yeah.
of
So
sticking in
I'm on the
place.
East Coast. I'm over by Jupiter. So I'm on the East Coast. Tampa's 3.5 hours away from me on the West Coast. But
Right.
yeah, if you come my way, give me a heads up.
But we live in New York, so anytime that, like, unless somebody lives in Buffalo, which is a 2-hour drive for us, I got to
Yeah.
go visit my mom in Connecticut. That's 6 hours.
Yeah, right.
So
Because you live way upstate. Yeah.
yeah, right.
100%.
So anytime I travel anywhere, I just anticipate to see somebody, I got to travel 6 hours. That's how my brain works. So, but for sure. Well, let me do a sign off here, guys. I appreciate everyone watching. If there'll be a link in the bio where you can find our friend Kenny Polcari from Slatestone Wealth. He has a great Substack. He'll give you great recipes and things that you guys should cook every day. I love it. My wife doesn't like the demand I put on her for all these recipes I have to keep giving her. But we'll see you guys next time on Life 22. Thank you, Kenny, for coming. And we'll see you guys next time.